Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, I guess, but sort of applies to just about anything that I do with the flight simulators, minus DCS World. Now this video is by request, and the request was to explain all the different tools that I use for my flight planning and try to break down when I use them. So I'm going to do my best. I want to emphasize that I'm still learning myself, so a lot of this is still coming to me. And there's still a lot to be learned in general. But someone who's just starting out, hopefully I can save you guys some headaches, okay? So most of everything I use is web-based, which is nice, okay, because it makes it real simple to interact with it and get what I need out of it. But obviously, so definitely for my airliners and like the TBM 930, and your turboprops in general, you can pretty much find everything you need on Simbrief, right? Because you're going to have that higher cruise altitude, and even on the low cruise altitude, you can still typically get what you're looking for. Okay, so I highly recommend logging in or creating an account with Simbrief. It is free to register with Simbrief. The only thing that you would need that's a paid subscription, and you don't need it, it's just if you want to fly the most current routes, all right? And that is a subscription to NavGraph. NavGraph is extremely handy for specifically the charts. Okay, this is NavGraph charts, and it gives you, and it connects with both X-Plane 11. I think all of them that I can think of. X-Plane 11, P3D, FSX, now MSFS 2020. It connects to all of them via SimConnect, and what it allows you to do is to pull up all the information you can think of for a specific airfield, right? And even gives you a world map when you're between locations. So if we pull up Philadelphia, for example, and let's say we're on the ramp. Okay, so on the ramp, loading up the aircraft, we're waiting for passengers to board, etc. Then I'm going to look for the airport info. Okay, you get a bunch of different ones here, but what we're going to be looking for is you can go all the way down to parking gates, right? And it breaks down every single gate. And so if we had our aircraft here, it would actually show me here at C22 or Alpha 9, whatever. This is extremely handy. And what's really even better about it is when we go to the taxi info, right? So we go to the top one here. It visually tracks the aircraft. So as you're taxiing, you can sit here and follow the aircraft along. So let's say you're supposed to go to, join 27 right via Foxtrot or Kilo to Foxtrot. All right, so you taxi via Kilo to Foxtrot, Foxtrot to 27 right, hold short 27 right? So we would follow our aircraft down here on Kilo, right? Turn right at Foxtrot, or left, well, that'd be right. Right on Foxtrot, and then we would hold short 27 right here. And it gives you the actual course heading of the runway, gives you the length of the runway. Really handy stuff. So up here you have all of your frequencies. NavGraph subscription, gosh, I don't even remember what it is these days. Let's see here. Let's look at subscriptions. So I do the monthly here, so $8.30 euro. So I think that comes out to just over $10. I think maybe just under. I can't remember what the conversion is now. But okay, $10 a month, and it's really, really handy. It's a really nice tool to have, because the other thing that you get with it is you get the updated air rack every month, or every cycle, I should say. And what that allows us to do is when we do our dispatch system in Simbrief and we create our flight plan, right? We enter in our to and from, etc. What we get is this guy right here, okay, the current. So we can see that we're at the 2012 current, all right? That's 2012 isn't the year, it's just the cycle. So AirRack cycle 2012 is what it's titled. The second this falls out of date with Simbrief, okay, it will ask you, do you want to update? You'll click yes here. It'll pop up a little box over here that will ask you if you want to log into NavGraph. And all it does is verifies that you have a current subscription. It doesn't like pull any data or anything like that. And as soon as it verifies, say yeah, all right. So then it unlocks the current air rack, right? So again, that makes it handy if you're really looking for that real world simulation. Okay, and that's really the basics for Simbrief and for the airliners. Now, talking about when to use what with the flight plan, that gets a little trickier, I guess. I mean, most of what you're going to type in from the flight plan is going to come from, is going to be in your initial startup, right? You know, when you're programming your MCDUs or your FMCs. So for that kind of information, I would recommend watching the tutorials that I have for like the A320. You'll get a good idea. Maybe look up some for the Zebo or the 737. Any of them really, as long as they show the flight plan. And if you guys want, please just leave it in a comment down in the description below, and I will be more than happy to do another full tutorial, you know, an updated tutorial where I actually show where I'm getting the different information from. Now, I've mentioned this before, but a really big tool that you want to use is this guy right here. So we go to Help User Guide. Scroll down. Now it gives you a bunch of stuff here. So I mean, I recommend reading through all this, at least, you know, a quick peruse, right? But it's not critical. But like, for example, it breaks down the climb profile, cruise profile, descent profile, a lot of this stuff, right? Now a lot of this stuff only has one option. Not all of it has necessarily different options, but it at least tells you what it is. So it really does help to at least look through this at least once, so that way when you see something you're like, what the heck does that mean? But the big one, it's got all your acronyms. This one's helpful as well. Or I should say the most common acronyms is a better way. But this guy is where it comes in. Okay, it's an OFP. I use the LIDO format. I hope that's correct. I hope I'm saying that right. There's two of them. There's LIDO and BAW. Again, I hope I'm saying that right, or BAW. And it's just two different layouts. So if you click the BAW, you can see the layout just changes. So different airlines use different ones. The most common one that I use is this one here. And what's really handy about this is, let's say you want to know where your cost index is, right? That's one of the things that we have to enter in the MCDU. There we go. Okay, so it gives you the cruise schedule speed for this flight. In this case, cost index 85. So it shows you where that is. I mean, you can mouse over literally any part of this, and it tells you what it is. So this is extremely handy now. And I'll tell you, you don't need to know what all of it is. You really don't. You need to know what your primary thing is. You know, block fuel, your total trip fuel, taxi. Where is that at? I just saw it. Oh, geez, right there. Okay, this is how much fuel we're expected to burn on taxi, right? And you want to pay attention to this before and at the end of the flight. And the other thing is setting your unit of measurement. That's another big one that you want to make sure that you're doing. So if we were to go back to Simbrief for a second. But anyway, there's that. So there's the help guide. But let's go back to the actual flight plan for a second. And sorry, I didn't even realize user guide's right here. So you can literally just bounce over there. Or maybe, let me see if you can do something. Yeah, if you just hold control and click on that, you can pull them up side by side, right? So anyway, let's throw something real quick in. We're not going to worry about whether or not it's accurate or not. We're just going to pick anything that's here. And you can have it set. So CI is your cost index. Okay, you can have it either pick it on auto. The thing about auto is it normally picks it very low. And because we're in simulation, right, we're not paying for gas unless you're doing like FS economy or something like that, or any kind of economic based, you know, add-on or program, then you might want to pay closer attention to this. But if you're just flying to fly, you know, you can keep this a bit higher, because the higher the number, the more fuel you burn, but the faster you go, right? So shave some time off the flight. And then fuel factor is another one that you're going to want to watch. If you find that, just going to shoot really low ball here. If you find that every time you do one of these, Simbrief gives you a fuel usage of 20 gallons, right? And you're only using 9 gallons of that 20. Well, then what you can do is you come in here and you can set a fuel factor, and that's the P's here. I don't remember what the M's mean, but we can set the P's here to, let's say, 40%, right? And what it's going to do is you're telling it is you're telling the Simbrief, hey, you normally give me 40% more fuel than what I actually need. Now, I don't know that I would cut it that close. You know, give yourself wiggle room, right? Delays, you know, go arounds, things like that. Make sure you have plenty of fuel to actually make it to your flight safely or your destination safely. But that's what fuel factor is, right? It reduces. It tells the Simbrief, hey, you're giving me too much gas. Here's how much gas I want you to shave off what you normally give me. Okay. So anyway, that's the fuel factor. But anyway, And then you get your route here pre-planned out. But what I like to do is you generate the OFP, so generate operational flight plan. And then I'm sure many of you have seen it before. I like to print the preview. Now you can either download this up here or just, I typically just keep this page up until I'm all programmed. Now the things that you're going to want primarily is you're going to want everything up here. This is your destination information, your alternate airport, your fuel load, right? So block fuel is what you're going to be, total fuel on board is what you're going to be looking at here. And then the other section you're going to want to really pay attention to, passenger count, your cargo weight, and your total payload. Okay. Cargo weight, I have no idea why, but it always gives me some ridiculously low number when I set it to auto. And then here is your detailed route. This can be helpful if you have airways. Okay, so you have your airway on top. So for example, the J212 is our airway here. Okay. And then below it is your waypoint on said airway. Okay. And just think of waypoints. If you think of these as a freeway, right? So, or freeway or highway, your J212 is the highway. Your waypoints here are the exit and entrance points to the airway. Okay. TOC, some big things to watch for. TOC, that's your top of climb. That's when you should be reaching your altitude. TOD, top of descent. Okay, a couple of big ones. And then what I like to watch for is when you're setting up your transitions on your arrival. You know, as you go through the transition list, make sure none of these are listed, for example, in the A320 as a VIA, because you may need to select one of those as well. But again, that's getting really detailed into it, and someone who's just starting out, I don't think that's necessary. The only other thing that you need to watch for on the flight plan is your units of measurement. So right now, everything's in pounds. This is great for like Boeing aircraft, but for like the Airbus, the A320 for FS 2020, or even in X-Plane or something, switch it over to kilograms, because by default, that's typically what the unit of measurement is. I know that's what it is right now for the Airbus. Although that might have changed. I don't know if there's an option to swap that yet. I haven't really gone through the new MCDU in great detail, so that could have changed by now. I'll have to look. But anyway, so that's Simbrief in a handbasket. You can use it for just about any aircraft. I mean, it's got a ton. I mean, there's your Cessna 172 right there. Okay, and you have your Cessna. See, I thought I saw the 180. I could be mistaken. Maybe not. Nope, I was wrong. Your CRJ 700. I think they have the one that we had earlier. I can't remember. There's our DA 62 that we have. So there's a bunch of these that you can actually plot your flight plan. There's our TBM 900 series. Okay, so you can roll just about anything. And then there's a way to customize aircraft, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But you can see here's the citation CJ4. All right, and I'll show you guys how to do that at a later time in another video, how we enter in those custom ones. Let's see here. What else we got next? So we talked about NavGraph. We talked about Simbrief here. And I would say that primarily both of those are very useful for VFR. But let's pull NavGraph out of the equation, because that can be, again, that's a paid subscription. So I don't like to tell people, to present it as a requirement, because it's absolutely not. The only other thing that I like to keep handy at the moment, because for me anyway, you guys have to let me know if you're having any trouble with this. In the FS 2020, we now have the option to change the units of measurement from US standard over to metric. And when I try to do that, it works fine until I try to adjust the wing tanks. Every time I try to adjust the slider on the wing tanks, it's busted, right? So I don't even bother with it anymore. So what I do is I make my flight plan in kilograms, right? And then I'll come over to the conversion here, and I'll switch it from kilograms to pounds. And then that's how I use the weights and balances inside the simulator. When you have that blue screen pop up and you can adjust your cargo and everything in the aircraft in the sim. Okay, and I just translate that information from kilograms over to pounds and then enter it in. And then that way, everything, when I go to configure the MCDU, this is in pounds right now, but I typically do kilograms for like the Airbus. I would just copy it right out of here, and I don't have to worry about any conversion once I get to the MCDU. Okay, I hope this is making sense, guys. The other thing that I want to show you guys, so now let's talk about VFR, right? So you have the little NavMap, which is a really handy tool, and I'm still learning it, so I'm not really displaying it right now. I mean, it's a neat app. I guess I can bring it up. Give me a second. It's a really neat app, really well done. I'm really impressed with the work this guy did on this thing, and is doing. I know that he's not done with it, so let me bring it up here. It's loading on my other screen. Give me a second. So here's little NavMap, and it gives us a lot of the similar features that SkyVector here does. That's behind me here, and I'll show you guys that in just a second. You can set your default airport or your departure airport. Keep saying default, I don't know why. But it gives you your different waypoints. You can put your mouse on different things, and it tells you that it's a waypoint. I'm sitting here pointing at the screen like you guys can see my finger. It's funny. Anyway, tells you what kind of airspace it is, what your restrictions are. Lets you zoom in pretty low. You have a bunch of tools, like, for example, this compass rose here. I think somebody asked me about it. I hope I remembered to respond to it because I know it gets a little crazy. Where is that thing? Gotta remember, I think this is it right here. Nope, that's NDB stations. And that's the thing, if you just mouse over everything, it'll tell you what it does. Is it this one? Yep, okay, so like here we go. So this will follow the center of the screen. And so you get your bearings, right? You can get your headings, your course headings, everything directly from where you are. I'll do another tutorial on this one as I get better on it, but it's a really handy tool. I'll still put a link to it in the description. There's a couple other YouTubers out there. There's a couple of videos out on this. I want to do something that's very, very detailed on it. I got so many things on the to-do list right now. It's crazy. But I think this one has definitely been pushed up to a higher priority lately. So anyway, this is a really handy tool. Again, link will be in the description as a link to everything that I have up here. I'll have it all down there, even the kilograms to pounds converter. But anyway, so let's move on, and let's say we didn't want to use little NavMap. Well, then you can also use SkyVector. Now, SkyVector is another one that I'm still learning, right? It gets a little tricky, and I'm still learning how to actually read it effectively. But it does allow you to, for example, set a world. You can go to World VFR. I find it primarily helpful for the VFR flights. And you can click on, and you can see I've already done it up here, but if we mouse over Tucson here, and I right click, and I add it to the plan, right, you can see that it switches, oops, I just added it back to the destination because I already had it. So let's do this. Let me do that. There we go. So if I add it to the plan now, you can see it adds it as my departure, right? And then if you watch real closely, like here's smokestacks, right? You can see these stacks right here. All right, these are waypoints or visual aids. Okay, it looks like some other smokestacks over here. There's a power plant, right? So SkyVector can be really handy. So let's say we wanted to fly out this way and we want to fly to this power plant. Okay, well, it's Pinal Airport, basically. Cool. So it's going to drop it there, and we'll obviously know when we're coming over Pinal, but let's move this. I can just click it and move it. Boom. All right, so now I'm going to throw that right there. And, oh, we want the GPS coordinates, so right here. Boom. All right, so now we have that in. And then, so Picacho Peak, that's a big mountain. Well, not a big mountain, but it's a very popular mountain in the southwest of Arizona. It was actually, if memory serves, a very small Civil War battle was fought there, which is funny because we're in the southwest. But, oh, crap. Zoomed out way too far. So you can throw that in there, and then it makes it real handy when you're doing VFR because you can look at, I'm trying to find areas that I don't know, for example. So it's like I could come out here, China Peak Observatory. I have no idea where that is. I've never seen it, but obviously I know what an observatory looks like. So it'd give me a good idea of what to look for. Here's more stacks up here if we wanted to fly way up north and just do some sightseeing. All right, so let's throw those GPS coordinates in there. Boom. And let's start maybe making a big circle around Tucson and come back home here. Let's see here. Flying J. That sounds familiar, but I don't remember what that is. I'm looking for things that I would know right off the bat. So let's keep peeking around for a second. I don't want to make them too far out, right? I want to make them pretty close to each other. Oops, I didn't mean to click that. I'm just looking. All right, so here, right here, we got a prison. Okay, so we can use that prison. So boom, all right. And you have to look really closely, but like each of these squares, buildings, right? You see that? letter W. So it looks like we'll see a W there, but better yet, looks like here's a smokestack, or is it, we'll see, that looks like that'd be a mountain. So that's Wilcox. Yeah, so there's going to be a mountain right there. Oh, here's our mountain range. So we could even go to the prison, and then we could just use Wilcox as our destination here. So fly right over Wilcox. Right? And then start making our way back in, right? And then so... let's not just use towns. I don't want to just use towns. I'm trying to find things that are more... got a stockyard here, a trailer park here. So let's use the trailer park as our next one. And then let's start coming inward. Tombs, that's probably not going to be able to see that. Unless we're down real low. I'm just looking around here for a minute. Oops. May have to use a city, so let's go ahead and use Benson. I mean, it's legit, right? It's probably a reasonable thing to do. New Tucson. I've never even heard of New Tucson. I'll be damned. Anyway, all right, so we got Mount Fagan here. Let's see if I can find something else. Ranches. We got a bunch of ranches out here, so let's do that. Maybe turn south for a little bit. And then now, I know where Green Valley is, but we can probably find something a bit closer. The fairgrounds, definitely know the fairgrounds. So I can do that. And then boom, back to Tucson. Okay, and so now we got our flight plan right here. And so we can do a nav log here. And it breaks everything down for us right here, right? So it's giving us our track heading, our magnetic variance, magnetic heading, our ground speed, our distance. Now, I'm not sure how it's giving us our ground speed because I haven't selected an aircraft that I'm aware of. And again, I'm still learning SkyVector 2. I haven't messed around with it a whole lot yet. But it does give us a lot of information. It gives us our altitude, and a lot of just neat features that don't have to be perfect. Gives you your diagram right here of the airport, so you know at least how to get in and out. That's real handy, your airport diagram. So, and then the briefing and filing, you don't have to worry about, but like if you were doing, I think if you were doing like Pilot's Edge or something like that, you could use it. But that's one way to use it for your VFR flights. And you can see here, you get your magnetic heading and your distance of each leg. All right, so we're at 108 degrees for 48 nautical miles. Here's 155 for 23, right? 154 for 23, so it's really handy. So that's something that I use for VFR flight, and then I'll transfer a lot of that information over into little NavMap. The other thing that I actually want to show you guys while I'm thinking about it is this guy. Now, I just discovered this guy this morning, so I haven't had a whole lot of chance to play with it yet. But it's a weights and balance calculator. And it's only got a select few aircraft. Now, you can go generic up here, but I'm not sure yet how all that'll work. So let's start with something we know. Here's the 172. And so we would empty in the basic weight of the aircraft, the arm, and you can find all of these from the Pilot's Operational Handbook, and I will show you guys that here shortly. I'm actually making something similar in Excel that I'm working on, and this is going to be something that's going to be available to my Patreon subscribers. And what it's going to look like is, give me a second. There it is. So we're starting out with something like this, okay? And where you can, the arm is already entered in for you, right? So we enter in, so for example, empty weight, let's say, and I'm just going to throw any number here. Let's say the empty weight is, I don't know, 4,300 pounds, okay? Pilot and co-pilot weight, let's say for a total we weigh 348 pounds, all right? I'm being legit here, trust me. You'd have to be pretty skinny for that to work with me. Passengers, let's say we've got maybe two little ones in the back at a total of 130 pounds, okay? In cargo, we have 18 pounds, right? Now we have our zero fuel weight, we have our total arm, 36.9, and we have our moment, right? And then all of this, I'm still working on the rest of this, but this is going to calculate our fuel, right? It's going to give us our ramp weight, startup taxi, run up fuel burn, the takeoff weight, how much fuel should be used, and then our estimated landing weight. All right, and then fuel has so 1 gallon of, this is for general aviation, 1 gallon of our general aviation fuel is 6 pounds, right? So it's going to configure all that. Anyway, that's still to come. I'm working on that, and what I'm going to have do is a second spreadsheet where you can attach the different aircraft, right? Basically, you can put in all you can put in all your information for the Cessna 172 and apply it. Put in all your information for the 182, etc. So I'm still trying to figure out how to bring them all together, and still got a ways to go. But something I wanted to show you guys that I'm working on, again, that will be available to my Patreon subscribers if you guys are interested in something like that. All right, so finally, the last thing I wanted to show you guys was Bing Maps, and this part's pretty easy. And this is another real helpful tool for doing your VFR flight planning. All right, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to come here to road, change it to aerial view. Okay, makes it a lot easier to manage. Now, just like before, we're obviously starting in Tucson here where I'm at. So let's go to find Tucson International. There it is right there. And so I'm going to say that we're using runway 29 right, so we're going to be taking off in this direction. And so I'm going to start my plot about here, and all I'm going to do is right click here. I'm going to hit measure distance. And from there, anywhere I move the mouse, you can see that it gives me an arm, right? And I can hold left click and still move it around. So let's zoom out a bit. And again, same thing. And the nice thing is you get the satellite view to sort of give yourself your visual references, okay? So let's see here. Let's do the same thing. Let's fly south, right? And those could be a little difficult. I'm just sort of looking around for a minute. And I'll show this. I'm going to make this real quick here. I'm just looking for a couple of good standout spots, right? Here we go. So we can use like Juan Alvarez, right? So you see this coming in from the air. So we can use this as a waypoint. Actually, that's too far. I just realized how far that was. I'm sorry. So you just right click it to remove it. I didn't realize how far I'd gone out. Okay. You don't want them to be that far. Alright, so let's fly down south here. And let's see here. This looks like this could be... No, that's... There we go. So here's Quail Creek, right? So here's a golf course. You can see that. So there's a good reference point. So we'll give that a tap. And I flew something similar in one of my previous videos where I used this method. Huachuca, right? So obviously we don't want to go too close to Fort Huachuca. That could be bad. But we can certainly... Well, here we'll just do exactly what I did before. So here's Tombstone, Arizona. Alright, so we'll use that as one. And then maybe come up. Alright, so you can see Wilcox Dry Lake, right? So that's a really good visual reference, plus all these farms here. Those circular patterns, that'll be a big one. Anyway, and then we'll just do a couple of... So from Wilcox, we'll just turn back in, right? It's pretty easy. Let's avoid the mountain peaks. Let's follow the interstate back in, basically. And here for what's hopefully a straight-in approach. Right? And... Sorry, that's what we wanted to do. Okay. And then so what you can do here is, A, it gives you the total distance of your flight, which is helpful. Right, so it's not per leg, but this is total distance of the flight. Okay, and we can just hit done here, right? And then what you can do is you can right click on these spots and you can see how it has the coordinates. Flight Simulator can use these coordinates. You hit copy, and when you go into the map on Flight Simulator, give me a second, I'll load it up. Alright, so real quickly, you can see we're in the Tucson area, but I come up here to search. Remember, I hit copy on that coordinates, on those coordinates. come up there, drop those in, select it, and boom, right? So there's our initial, if you see here, this was the last waypoint. So let's do, here, let me do something a little bit differently. Let me give you guys a better reference here. So I'm going to pull it up. So let's do this. Let's find the first one that we did. So let's give our starting location. And actually what we can do here, before we get there, is let's go back in the sim real quick. I'm just going to select Tucson International, set it as our departure, right? You can select your parking spot. Obviously, you guys know how to do that. So now let's go here. And let's find our first waypoint. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect, close enough, right? Copy. Go back into the sim. Search. Copy. Select. And we just want to, oops. Oh, that's right. Select your arrival first. Sorry, hang on. So we want our arrival in there as well. And now we're going to do a search. I hate that it does this. It's so dumb. There. And then now we're going to add this to our waypoint, to our flight plan. Okay. And you can see it bouncing around. But let's go ahead and grab the next one. And so now Tombstone, copied, and I just hit the X because MSFS is really dumb with this. And again, add, okay, and you can see what it's doing here, right? It's creating our flight plan that we have created. And so I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You guys get the idea, hopefully. But again, that's another neat tool that you can use to, you know, because of the satellite imagery that you get from here, it makes it really handy to pick your VFR waypoints, okay? And then enter in the coordinates in the FS 2020 if you want to in, for example, the G1000 or the G3000, or if you just want to be able to have it on the VFR map if you choose to use it, okay? I like to try to do my VFRs without entering it into the simulator, but, you know, each person's preference. Don't feel like that's something you guys have to do, you know, fly to where you enjoy it. That's the whole reason why we're doing this, is for fun. You know, yes, it can be used for educational and training tools, but at the end of the day, make sure you guys are having fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, we're doing something wrong, right? Otherwise, you know, especially with the amount of money that we dump into this, make sure that you get the enjoyment out of it. So anyway, guys, that pretty much wraps up my tutorial for today, or my video for today. I don't know if this is really a tutorial, but this is pretty much how I do things on an average basis. Now, obviously, some of the shifts as I find new things or find X works better than B, you know, etc. But if you guys have any questions, comments, anything that I need to further elaborate on, maybe you liked something, a specific part of it, but you want to see more of it in action, let me know, guys, and I'll be happy to create these videos. Again, at the end of the day, I do this for the community. I like to give back. I like to help. So if you guys are interested in supporting the channel, please consider subscribing to the Patreon site down below. There is a new A320 guide that I'm making, revision 2. Going to be significantly more detailed, cockpit tours, table of contents, QuickBook searches, all kinds of stuff. So, and then again, I'm going to have that weights and balances chart that I showed you guys earlier that I'm working on. That's coming. A document coming for the CJ4. I thought that was kind of a fun one, and the TBM 930 that I'm working on as well. So there should be some pretty cool stuff here coming down. Obviously, with holidays coming around, things are a little bit slower than usual, but, you know, it is in progress. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. And other than that, have yourselves a very wonderful evening. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.